Hey guys, it's BB202, and today we're going to be talking about LEGO set design issues. And trust me, there are a lot of them. In order to properly cover this, I've brought in my good friend, the Brickstop. He designs system-scale castle mocks for his Instagram, and he'll be weighing in on some of LEGO's official builds.
Hello everyone, my name is Jason. I run the Brickstop Instagram and YouTube account. And like BB202 said, I mostly just mess around with 90s castle builds and things like that. Today I have the great honor of being a guest on BB202's channel, and we're going to be looking at some of the issues we have with some of the things LEGO's been doing recently in their set design and production.
I'll leave the links to Jason's Instagram and YouTube in the description below if you want to follow him. Without further ado, let's get into the video. So back in the day, in the late 90s, people were really getting on LEGO's case because they were making all their sets out of large prefabricated pieces that they could have been making with a bunch of smaller pieces. It was kind of a cop-out, and people didn't like that because it kind of limited what you could make out of a set. And it wasn't anything like what they were making in the 80s, which was arguably a bit too generic. So over time, LEGO started to phase out those bigger parts, and they replaced them with a bunch of smaller parts that had more usages because they were just smaller and more versatile. And for a while, we had a happy medium. But then LEGO started drifting a bit too far and too into what they called more detailed sets. Now, while that's true to a point, because they were using a lot of very small greebling, which they do to this day, to make up details, there's kind of a devious intent to that. Brickset has a thing called the price per piece ratio, which was popularized on that site not too long ago, where the price and the pieces would kind of correspond in a ratio, where, for example, if you have a set with 1,000 pieces, it should be $100. 10 cents a piece is generally what that ratio is. So ever since that became kind of the standard by which people buy products, LEGO's been taking advantage of it a bit. They've been driving up the piece counts on sets by using a bunch of smaller pieces. Now, they say they do it in the name of more detail, but it's capitalism, and we know a bit of opportunity arises when you can get away with something, right? So what they've really been doing is, as they've added these additional details, per se, they've made the actual sets smaller. So while you're paying the same amount of money, you're actually getting less, and they're hoping nobody notices that. But if you just do a little bit of comparison, you can see that while technically the pieces are the same in two different sets, one is smaller than the other because it was released more recently. LEGO had a lot of stickers on their big pieces back in the day, which is something people had a problem with. And you would think that as they replaced them with smaller pieces, that would now make up a lot of the organic detail, but unfortunately it hasn't really solved the issue with the stickers. We get just as many stickers now as we did then, but now they're smaller, which in my opinion makes them even more annoying. We have a whole bunch of stickers across all these sets, which LEGO could easily just make detailing to represent what that sticker's trying to show, but they just choose not to. And instead, we've got these kind of cheap-looking stickers on a very expensive set, and it makes it look like it's something like a bootleg or an off-brand. If you were just judging by the box arts, until this year, LEGO's never made a set targeted at people over 18. Heck, you could be 100 years old and LEGO wouldn't recommend you a sand-colored baseplate. That's because, at its core, LEGO's a company for kids. They acknowledge adults more than they used to, but they're always going to be kind of on the outside looking in. But when they make a bad set that's worthy of criticism, calling it a kid's toy is something that they can hide behind.
People use that argument to excuse bad designs or repeat themes because they're just for kids. And I've heard people say things like, oh, well, you might not like it, but it's designed for kids and kids will like it. And I just don't see that as a very valid reason to excuse a poor set design or a repetitive theme that continues to just be rehashed and rebuilt over and over again. Just because a child will like it doesn't mean it has to be poorly designed or that you don't have to try to design really interesting, well-made sets for kids. I think it should be the opposite. I think the sets that are for kids should be the best looking, best, most interesting sets because they're the ones that are going to be building and playing and learning from these things.
The set design for Marvel and DC has absolutely tanked since they both came back in 2012. And that's partially due to the fact that a lot of people buying superhero sets are more in it for the minifigures. Now, that's not an attack on them. You know, I can't determine what they want and how they want it, but LEGO kind of understands that, because you can tell after a while they sort of gave up trying to make well-designed sets, and instead they started just plugging in so-called chase figures into these sets. Basically, that you value the figures in the set more than the build. And I guess LEGO doesn't really care as long as they're making money out of it, but you've got all these sets nowadays that have super detailed, high-quality minifigures, yet the set design is almost non-existent. You got a couple of random things, like in the Avengers compound, it looks nothing like the actual compound, and then you've got the Avengers car, which was meme-worthy. People were making memes of that last year. It's just horrible. I don't know why you do that.
The new Iron Man Hulkbuster suit, I don't know what happened there, but it looks like he tried to take off before the sunroof was open, smashed his head flat. I don't know how that design got by a design board or whoever was in charge of that one. I don't even want to bring up the Lego Mario theme, but I feel like I have to at least say that, in my opinion, it falls below Jack Stone for some of the design and just like the whole theme in general. That was a massive missed opportunity in my opinion. And again, that's just my thoughts on that. I'm not going to get into it because I could probably shoot a whole video on that. But one thing I did want to speak about was the Star Wars universe going the way of superheroes. Now, I've always thought that Lego Superheroes was very, very scattergun effect. Just make a bunch of different sets and hope that people buy off of those different ones. Now, again, superheroes in general, it's a very complex universe to build in. However, if you go into a Lego store today and want to buy, say, a Spider-Man set, you could end up buying one from a current movie, a comic book edition, or one from a spin-off animated movie, even with different labeling and marketing on the boxes. And that seems to be across the board with most of the superhero sets available from both Marvel and DC. I think the saddest thing for me is Star Wars, because Star Wars used to be very, very, very much a theme where you could buy sets from The Empire Strikes Back and create The Empire Strikes Back, or sets from A New Hope or A Phantom Menace and create those things. I think Solo was the last one where they just released a wave of sets that you could slowly buy over time or all at once and create the universe from the movie Solo. It just really seems like there's a lack of systematic play there, which was one of Lego's foundational building blocks that made them a great toy company to start with.
When it comes to the non-licensed themes, which, as you all know, I will always cape for over the licensed themes, unfortunately, they've all started to fall into their own pattern as well. Basically, every theme that comes out that's non-licensed nowadays has to have 500 bikes, 500 mechs, 500 fighter jets, and tech tanks, and all sorts of things, and the prerequisite is they all have to be sci-fi. I don't know where the sci-fi obsession started, but when you look at Chima, Ninjago, Monkey Kid, Ultra Agents, Nexo Knights, Hidden Side, they're all sci-fi, indiscriminately. And I'm sure if somebody from LEGO were to respond to this, they'd say, well, in the focus groups we do with the little kids, all the sci-fi stuff did really well. Alright, that's great, but you're acting like everybody on Earth and every little kid ever wants sci-fi sets, and that's definitely not true. LEGO hasn't made a theme without a ton of technology in it for at least 5 years. Probably the Pirates line that came out in 2015. But they just refuse to do that. Now when you get something that's, quote, historical, it has to, like a historical castle theme has to come with Squire bots and robo horses for LEGO to put it on the shelves. So all of these designs, as they make 500 different versions of the same thing, obviously get derivative. They all start to look the same. They go back on the same tropes over and over again, and it's really quite frustrating.
One of my favorite things about LEGO growing up was the system of play they created in all of the themes that they were releasing, and how cohesive all those were and how well they worked together. That is something LEGO still preaches somewhat, but we don't see it as much, I don't think. Now, with the rise of Harry Potter and actually the most recent season of Ninjago, we see some of those things coming back, which is really cool. Obviously, this issue isn't across the board or even the end of LEGO. It's just something that I noticed recently and was just kind of disappointed about. Again, Lego Harry Potter, the National Geographic series Inside City, and their space, and a lot of their ones from a couple years ago, like Volcano Explorers, the Arctic Expedition one, and the Lego City Jungle. Very cohesive, completely awesome themes that you could just collect and put together and create a whole little world inside of Lego City.
Although we just spent the last 10 minutes pointing out things that LEGO doesn't do right, that's not to say that they're, completely failing at designing sets. Actually, I think that when you look at their set design, especially just confined to since 2000, it's gotten exponentially better. I made this video to point out that, along the way, there are a few things that they lost when it came to designing sets. And if I were to just make a video talking about all the great things that LEGO does, it would be a puff piece. They don't need to hear that. I think the sales figures reflect that what they're doing is working for them. It's more intended as constructive criticism in that way.
I just want to say that we both love LEGO. We care a lot about it, and we've both been impacted by it growing up in many different ways. And the reasons we bring these issues and things that we see up is because we actually do care about LEGO and the success of the company, and we want to see them maintain their #1 position as the best building brick toy company in the world. Thank you so much for watching my little segment on my thoughts about some of the direction LEGO company's going recently. I'm out.
Thank you so much, Jason. I'll leave the links to his social media in the description below if you guys want to follow him or support his work. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. It took quite a long time to put together, a lot of coordination, but I think that it came out pretty well. If you guys would like to respond to what's in the video, leave a comment below. If you'd like to make a suggestion about what should be in a future video, I'd also appreciate that. Don't forget to support me on Patreon, follow me on Instagram, and most importantly, subscribe to this channel. We're coming up on 100 subscribers right now. Thank you guys so much for watching the video, and see you later.